Okay, so part 2, to be continued. Previously on the Jackie Chronicles, no. So I was already in like a tremendous state of caregiver's guilt and everything by the time my grandfather passed, and it was a traumatic experience for me. I'm trained, medically trained, but there's like, you can't be medically trained for a family member like that. Like, it's just not. And with him, it was just so traumatic. I came downstairs, like I said, I had everything planned, and my grandfather was kind of sitting in the dark. I couldn't really see him, and he looked at me and he goes, Jack, he goes, I think I need to go to the hospital. Now at this point, I have projects for quite so much stuff to do, and I'm like, it's bad if he's saying that. I was like, he would fall all the time, and I couldn't get him up, and like there were times he couldn't breathe, and he would yell at me. He's like, don't call. I'm like, I want to call him. He's like, no. And I would struggle to get him up, and then I'd get him up. So I knew it was bad, right? So he had lied to me. Somebody took him to the doctor. My cousin, Cheryl, had taken him to the doctor, and he lied to me and told me that he had a year. So that devastated me as it was. And then I also heard him talking with his therapist. And I was doing the best I could. I was so spread thin. And I felt so guilty because I heard the therapist telling him. And he was like, you should go to a home. And that was what I was trying to prevent. And I was unsuccessful because he was telling him that he needed to go to a home. And like I would see family members sometimes if we'd go to a party and I'd take them. And they'd be like, is he eating? I'd be like, yeah, I'm cooking for him. You know what I mean? That makes you feel horrible. I didn't expect to cry. But yeah, so if you haven't been taking care of somebody that you love, you would get it. You would get it. It's the hardest thing you'll ever have to do is to reverse that role and be that caregiver. Especially for someone like him. He was so crazy. But yeah, so I was a mess. Obviously, it still like impacts me now. I didn't think it would, but anyhow. So I was a wreck. I was a mess, and I knew it. But I didn't want it to be like with my grandma or whatever. So anyway, my family on my dad's side was getting in contact with me, and they kept like, at that time too, they were getting in contact with me, and it was like they all wanted to reconnect with me when he was sick. And I was just like, I'm a very trusting person, and that's something I'm learning. I can't trust everybody because I've had so many people walk on me. And then on top of it, they'll turn around and be like, no, like it was her. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Whatever, psycho, get out of my Van Halen shirt. So I was, like I said, like, think about that. Just think about if you were going through all that. And going to school, and then other people, like, going in on you at the same time. So when he passed, he said, Jack, I have to go to the hospital. I came downstairs, and I looked, and I turned the light on because I couldn't really see. And then I see he's bleeding everywhere, like coming out bad. Like he ended up aspirating, and that's what basically, so anyway, so I call, and they're like, okay, so I told them, I said, I want to come. I thought it was going to be like every other time. I want to drive. And they're like, they looked at me, they're like, okay. They're like, get there fast. I got there, and they were basically working on him a block from the hospital because I missed a turn and I seen it. And I'm like, oh, okay, block from the hospital. I'm like, that's not good. I know that's not good. And from then on, he was on the ventilator, and we had to make the call to DNR and finally let him go, because it was just like, what quality of life did he have? Even the past birthday, I had asked him, and it was the most heartbreaking thing. I said, Grandpa, what can I get you? Because I used to get him golfing stuff all the time. That was the only thing I could get him that he loved emphatically. Like, I would get him golf and stuff. So I said, what can I get for you for his birthday? And he looked at me, and it broke my heart because he was like, you could make me get better. I was like, I wish if I could. Right now, I would have wiggled my nose, whatever, and done it. But anyway, so after he passed, I was a wreck. And then my family swooped in like vultures. My family on my mom's side swooped in. My mom, my aunt, and my uncle all came in. All these people that couldn't be bothered. I asked my uncle, because me and my uncle used to be so close. I said, why? Why did you leave us? And he said, there was nothing that could be done. There was nothing that could be done. And I looked at him like, I needed help. I needed a hug. You could have gave me a hug. You could have given me a hug. You could have been family. But no. But all those people that couldn't even answer the phone or couldn't come see us, we were by ourselves. No problem. They came and tore my house up to look for the will. They tore it up while I was grieving. And while I was grieving, I was depressed because I actually cared for my grandfather. I don't know if they did or they didn't. I can't say what's in somebody's heart. I don't know. I don't understand why they were as greedy as they were, because we were raised by the same people. And my grandparents were not like that. So if you ever meet these three people, they are not a representation of my grandparents at all. At all. My grandfather would give you the shirt off his back, and you know that. My grandfather over the year took so many family members into the house when they had nowhere else to go, and if you were taken in by us, you know. My grandmother would go to the store and buy stuff for people that she knew they wanted just to see a smile on their face. You would say, I wanted something. She'd remember. She'd go to the store and she'd buy it. They were fantastic, wonderful people, and I was so lucky. They were my angels. They were here to protect me and guide me. Thankful. I am thankful. That's the biggest gratefulness I have in the world, was having them in my life to protect me. Right? So over the years, when I had them raising me, they didn't tell me when I was younger, but me and my grandmother used to have conversations when we would sit. And my grandmother told me, because they would tell me when I would go there, this is your house, this is your family. When I would visit a week out of the years, and they would tell me too, I'd be like, well, why don't you call me for Christmas or stuff like that? My dad's family, my grandma and stuff, and my aunt and them. And they would tell me when I was little, and when you're little, you believe a lot of stuff that you obviously don't when you're older, because you know better, right? Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus. So they would be like, oh, our phone doesn't call out. Little did I know, phone cards and stuff like that aren't that hard. It's not that hard to get in touch with somebody from Florida if you love them, right? Excuse me. So anyway, so I was like, all right. So I'm like, all right. But then I started realizing it was, like I said, rejection and abandonment. That's what it was. And that's a childhood issue that I struggled with. And it manifested into my adult years. And it often does as traumas and triggers that I'm working through every day. So they never, and my grandmother was like, Jackie, when I was old enough, and we were having one of our 2 a.m. conversations at the coffee table, as we often did, because we'd stay up all night. She was my best friend. We'd go everywhere together. So when I lost her, I lost a lot. I lost a piece of me. It was it was the worst. And that's why when I lost her, I was numb. Because when I lost my grandfather, I felt everything, and I was a mess. And like I said, my family swooped in. But she told me that night, she was like, Jackie, she was like, they didn't want you. They didn't want you. And I saw that. I had been acting up when I was a teenager. They couldn't handle me, and I was out of control. And they called my dad, and I watched that, and my dad ghosted them. I watched. I was 14 at the time. I watched him go